From Timcast.com. Breaking. Florida Senate passes legislation ending Disney's tax privilege, self-governing power, and special exemption status. So Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, is like, they can just build a nuclear power plant on their own. Like, they're able to do certain things that nobody else is able to do. So I think they're right to be looking at this and reevaluating it. I want to say the most important element of this story is that Disney decided to get woke. They thought they could push push all of us around and say, you know what? The activist employees are complaining about wokeness. Let's just give them what they want. Well, now they are seeing that you reap what you sow. You want to come out and you think that you can just adopt ideology. Say you will be political. Disney was outright like, we're going to defeat this bill. Florida said, okay, you want to get political? We'll take away your special status. Now we're seeing, as of today, their stock has dropped by 5.56%. On top of that, their stock was already hurting this year. It's good to see real economic consequences, right? Freedom of speech doesn't mean freedom from consequences, right, Disney? I want to see more companies who want to act a fool and play dirty games see actual accountability.
My thoughts were, yes, you break up that big corporate, monopoly, break it up. That's why we have antitrust laws. That's why we have a government in place, is to protect us from these insidious things like corporate people, whatever. But Tom, when you came in here, you made a great point that how far is this going to go? How much authority should a government have to stop the private sector?
Well, look, Disney is the leadership of Disney is abusing shareholder dollars by spending them improperly to target or promote talking about sexual activities with young school children. And if you're a shareholder, you ought to be saying, why aren't you producing more and better product and increasing shareholder value? Go ahead.
Just real quick. I mean, on that point, should the shareholders sue for a violation of the company's fiduciary duty?
Well, I ain't no lawyer, but the people have been sued for less, that's for sure, in terms of stock fights and things like that and shareholder lawsuits. But secondly, though, you've got this special position that Disney has in Florida. It's been around since 1967, and they're talking about taking away some governance that benefits Disney corporate-wise and arguably the state. And so the concern I have is this being considered for reasons that are neutrally applied, meaning it's a bad idea to provide corporations these special tax incentives and such, or is it a political payback? And if it's the second one, the danger is that, look, the left almost always controls the levers of power. So if the new standard is that if corporations break free and start engaged in politics the way Disney has, either on the left or the right, is it going to be a free-for-all in terms of punishing corporations through government action? Let's say in California, they go after a defense contractor, or in New York, they go after a gun manufacturer. In fact, that's actually what's happening.
Yeah, they're already talking about doing that without any of this being.
Right, it's already happening,
right?
Yeah. And it's been consistently people who oppose the cult wokeness fringe ideology who have been getting attacked.
What's happening in New York?
This is like the first time Republicans are like, okay, you know what? We're not going to tolerate you getting into this.
And to be clear, I'm not saying I oppose what Florida did. I'm just highlighting, well, let's be aware of what's happening out there in the culture, and that corporations, when they engage in politics, there's going to be payback now and again. And, Florida is making a policy decision. They got this major corporation that's decided to take the benefits they're getting from the public and target school children. And so that's the reaction you're going to get from the elected representatives of the public. Well, you're not going to use these special benefits anymore on behalf of an agenda that we didn't sign up for when we gave them to you to begin with.
I don't think it's as bad as you might be making it seem, whether it's intention or not. This is Disney, who has no business in education policy, deciding to come out because a fringe faction of activists at their company complained. They ignore the activists at the company who are like, we don't want to be involved in this. If a gun company in New York said, we're going to lobby for gun rights, I'd be like, that makes sense. If Disney said, we're going to lobby for entertainment rights and special privileges, I'd be like, okay, well, that makes sense. If a gun manufacturer came out and said, we're going to start dumping money into getting religion put in schools, I'd be like, they shouldn't be doing that. If they started, if they said our mission is to defeat this, I'd be like, you're a gun company. What are you doing? Disney's doing exactly that. They have no business. They're doing it for PR reasons. Well, if they want to be involved in politics as a political organization, they got to play by the rules, and this is what happens.
I'll tell you what, man. Disney has been attempting to educate kids since the inception of the company. They make cartoons for little kids, and they put subliminal ideas like you see all sorts of crazy occult stuff in it. If you really look for it, and there's tons of YouTube videos about it, conspiracy or whatever. But that's the basic indoctrination of children is cartoons on TV, and that's Disney's specialty. So I'm not really even Walt was a great man, but when he died, so in my opinion, so did that company, man. It's no longer, they should have to change the name or something. That's abusive.
We'll read through some of these super chats, but someone did mention just now the buildings probably aren't up to code. So if Disney, it's Disney World, I think, right? Whatever.
Yeah, in Florida.
If they're under a special governing status, I'm willing to bet they do not conform to Florida building code, which means now that they lose this status, they're going to get shut down. I mean, hey, you want to bring Disney to heel, this is how you do it.
And when you see, and to Ian's point, I think it was Christopher Rufo who disclosed these Zoom meetings with Disney producers and executives and creators talking about pushing their agenda, this radical sexual identity agenda in the cartoons and in the content targeting at children. So for all of the caution, let's be clear here. Disney is engaged by their own admission in pushing propaganda on young children that parents would reject and taxpayers want no part of in Florida. That's what's clear. This wouldn't be happening if the politicians didn't think our voters don't, want this. And certainly Disney has every right, and they've got all the money in the world to persuade the voters otherwise to keep their special benefits, but it's a hard argument to make.
Yeah, so Disney is not a company that I happen to be a fan of, Ian. I agree with a lot of what you said, and I agree with what you're saying now. They essentially want to use their platform to push and normalize perverse sexual lifestyle choices onto children. On top of that, they have sex abuse scandals. We know that they have hired people who were convicted of child sex abuse in the past on the Disney Channel specifically. So not a good company. Yes.
iCarly, was that what it was?
I'm not. So, there's talk about that, but there's talk about that, but I'm referring specifically to Brian Peck, who was convicted and then later, after he served, hired by Disney to consult over the phone because he wasn't allowed to actually be in the presence of children.
Right. Wow. And then there's just, if you just look at these memes, every few months they arrest child traffickers at Disney. Well, I mean, of course these people are going to want to work there, right? They want to get access to kids, and Disney apparently doesn't do enough screening to stop them, or they're not paying attention to the trafficking that's occurring under their noses.
We're all concerned about critical race theory in the schools, but at least there's political accountability there in theory. So everything you're concerned about in the schools is already happening on the Disney Channel, Nickelodeon, and it's all targeted at very young children. The far left is taking control of children's programming, and it isn't just reading, writing, and arithmetic, teaching kids how to read. It's social, cultural transformation on television, and Disney's now being kind of forced to admit it because they're in the business of teaching your kids values that are very different than the parents expect from the content. And I am a parent, but we don't watch those Disney shows anymore. But I would not allow any of this children's program to be seen by my children until I had seen it first.
Don't give your kids cell phones.
Yeah,
homeschool your kids.
Yeah,
so really. I defer to the big tech CEOs, these executives who don't give their kids cell phones. Why is it that the people who work at the big social media companies are like, I'm not gonna let my kid have a phone, because they know what's on these websites.
Have you noticed this weird social psychosis of the last decade has really coincided with the proliferation of these devices too?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Streaming internet video.
It's simple. When someone's in a cult, to get them out of the cult, you have to separate them from cult members and deprogram them. But with the existing woke cult, it's right there in the palm of their hands. Every time someone says something, hey, this isn't true, you need to get away from this, they retreat back to their fantasy world.
And the most vulnerable is the children. That's the reality.
I'll tell you right now, what's one of the most infuriating things, because I can't stand the media lying, is the Taylor Lorenz story, where Washington Post And I'll issue a clarification for things I was saying yesterday and things I said today, because I want to make sure I get all the facts correct. In the original Washington Post article that doxed the creator of Libs of TikTok, they linked to a real estate license, which included a private home address. It was a commercial residential mixed property listed as a business address, but also, according to public records, a private residential address for the creator of the Libs of TikTok. And they also explained, they didn't link to, they explained how to get their private phone number. So they said, the phone record is found here associated with this domain, which took me 2 seconds to just Google and then
3 seconds to do a DNS lookup.
So I'm not, but I want to be careful with my language. They didn't link to the number. They just told you, gave you the instructions, the name you needed to look for with the thing to find it. And so this one's really frustrating because I'm seeing many prominent left-wing personalities just go, they never linked to any private details. I'm seeing the Washington Post say, we never linked to private details. And I'm like, yo, these people are in a cult.
Well, some of them are saying they never linked to private details, and some of them are saying that it's good that they link to private details.
Yeah, so which
I'm
is
seeing
it?
both takes.
Well, now the door's been opened on that one. And, this guy responded to me and he's like, Tim, your followers have been doing this for years. And I'm like, I don't think you watch my show. I don't think you know who our followers are. Like, we don't have that kind of audience.
You can't control your followers. You can
But
only give them
this is-
advice and guidance, but everyone
point
has to
is-
make their own choice.
We don't have followers who do that stuff. Like, I mean, I'm sure there's a couple people here and there who watch the
Yeah.
show, but we are not on these platforms where we're engaging in overt activism. In fact, I told the guy, I think doxing the name of Libs of TikTok was wrong. And he's like, you mean to tell me that if you got the name of some Antifa account, you wouldn't publish the name? And I was like, yes, I would not.
Probably
How many
not.
times have you guys heard me say I won't say their name?
Yeah.
I say it all the time.
Minimize harm. It's one of the tenets of
I even
journalism.
sometimes refuse to say Cenk Uygur's name when the story is about the Young Turks.
true. Yeah.
Because I'm trying to avoid drama and trying to talk about concepts and philosophy. These people, they don't, I feel like their goal is specifically to keep people in the dark for political power. They are evil. When the Washington Post came out and said, we never did that, and you can pull up the archive and just see that they did, I'm like, these people are downright evil.
So are they lying? They put a link to this address. Is that different than posting
They
the
said,
address?
no, they said we did not link to it.
Okay.
Outright lie.
Total
They did.
lies.
I will assert as a statement of fact, the Washington Post linked to the private home address of the creator of Libs of TikTok.
It's as if they didn't think they were doing it, so then they said they didn't. But they did.
No,
Yeah,
they're just
well, and then
lying.
it-
They're just lying because they're evil people.
Yeah, and even if they didn't know, that's almost worse.
And then they deleted it, so obviously they knew.
Yep.
They edited the page.
Good point.
Yep.
I think a lot of these media become, they sometimes engage in journalism, but places like the Washington Post have just become left-wing advocacy groups that sometimes create journalism that's valuable. But, Judicial Watch, we're a nonprofit. We do lots of talking about policy. We educate people. We do journalism. But, it would be hard to argue that we weren't advocating for certain values. And the Washington Post is more activists than any political group I know in the movements of both the left and the right in terms of pushing forward narratives and agendas. And in the case of Lawrence, or outing the author of the Libs of TikTok tweet feed, it wasn't. It's problematic, obviously, that they exposed her, but more importantly, they lied about the content. And it wasn't.
Right.
It was exposing her to attack and belittle the content and cut off access to it from the public.
Is Judicial Watch a 501c3 or C4?
So we're a 501c3, which to those who don't follow the IRS code means we're a charity, meaning we can take tax-deductible contributions.
It also means you can't engage in overtly political activity.
It generally means that we can't endorse or oppose candidates.
Yeah.
And, I can talk about politics, but I can't, say vote for Republicans or Democrats.
Can you say who you're going to vote for?
I could in my personal capacity, but I choose not to generally because of the nature of our work, because we end up suing everyone.
I want to give Taylor the benefit of the doubt really quick, because it's possible that when she wrote this article, she thought she was linking to the business address, and then
No.
it went up, and then they were like, we didn't, and then when they realized they did, they pulled it down.
No, she's still denying it.
And so we're awaiting them to be like, actually, we
No,
did.
no,
That is the
she-
benefit of the doubt, at least.
No, Ian, you can't. She didn't. She outright denied it to me
But
personally.
it doesn't matter what she said. They did it. I know they did
Yes. She outright denied it to me personally. I did not publish the home address. Then the Washington Post said we didn't link to private information. They are just lying on top of lies because they are not good people. Don't give them the benefit of the doubt when they're lying, like overtly. And I'm flabbergasted by it's like, imagine being, it's that Family Guy joke. Imagine being in an elevator with one other person who just lets out a big fart, looks at you and says, "You did it."
Gaslight.
I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, I watched you do it. What are you lying
Only
to me
benefit
about?
of the doubt in that I want to understand why it happened and never attribute to malice what could have been attributed to stupidity. It's a thing I've heard in the past, so maybe it was
Hanlon's razor.
I mean,
Doesn't mean they're not
my
guilty.
my view on the Post now is if a Post reporter called me up to find out where a court hearing is, I say, oh yeah, it's here. What's the case about? It's about this. But if they're calling me up to talk about conservatives and what's our view on topic A and B, I say, I'm not talking to you. I mean, you're left-wing, dishonest advocates, and I'm not going to waste my breath talking and explaining our views to you so you can attack whoever it is you're trying to attack, usually people who are aligned with our values. And I'm not playing their game.
I want to make sure everybody understands this. There is no way you can talk to a journalist. You are not smarter than them. They have a plan. They know what they're doing. You will not go on The Daily Show. You will not go on Jim Jeffries. You will not go on John Oliver. You think you're smart. You think if I explain my positions, I'll tell you some of the tricks they do. First of all, when it comes to these comedy news shows, they'll just manipulate what you said because they're allowed to do it because it's a comedy show.
Easy.
But let's say you tell a journalist something explicitly like, I reject and refuse I completely reject racism. It is completely wrong, and I oppose these racist organizations. Instead of quoting you, if they want to get a narrative, they will say, when asked about their racist ties, they became belligerent.
Huh.
Right.
And you'll be like, but I told them they don't have to put that in there. They can just say they became outraged and belligerent. I believe it was because they were truly racist, and they won't tell the world what you said. I had a guy hit me up from the Daily Beast, and I gave him quotes. He cut out any quote that made me look good. And then here's another trick they do. You think you can give them a good quote, just one solid quote. They might still use it with ellipses. You'll say something like, that man who came out and said pizza is disgusting, that man was wrong. And they'll put ... quote ... pizza is disgusting ... quote. And they'll say he literally said those words. And when you were like, I was quoting someone else, they'll be like, did you can't sue him over it. It's a statement of fact. It said you said it. And you can be like, yeah, but I wasn't referring to that way. I'm like, you did it.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
it's the story I want to mention about this reporter from the Boston Globe who wrote that Based Stickman, this is back during the Battle of Berkeley several years ago, was a white nationalist. And I messaged him and I was like, I saw you wrote that. And like, this guy's got his wife's like, Asian mixed race. He's got a mixed race kid. It's like, I think you're wrong. And he goes, is the guy white? I said, yes. Is he a nationalist? Yes, he's a white nationalist. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wow, dude,
you cannot follow.
You cannot talk to these people.
Right.
And so we see this all the time happen. Jordan Klepper, I think his name is, he shows up to these rallies and these people think they can talk to him. And then what he does is he cuts it all up and makes them look insane. And then he puts it on TV.
And who's he with?
It's Comedy Central.
I
don't know if he's still doing it. Maybe he's on the Daily Show now or whatever.
Yeah.
But they all do it.
Another problem with these like live shows with live audiences is unless the host is willing to tell the audience to shut up when they start booing and heckling, the audience will shout you down when you're making a good point, and then the host will be like, if they have an agenda. So you need like an ethical host to like keep everything ordered.
Not Jon Stewart. That dude's ratings are in the gutter.
Yeah, I mean, I used to do Politically Incorrect back in the day, back when Maher was on ABC, and I'd be the lone conservative typically, and getting booed all the time for the entire half hour, and it's not fun, but at least you get to say your piece because it's hard to edit what you're saying.
Right, those are better.
But I agree with you. Generally talking to the media is a bad idea. I used to talk to reporters at the Daily Beast, and I stopped talking to them because I give them a quote, and the headline would be, "Conservatives get hysterical about X." Yep.
So
I'm not giving you material to attack America with. I'm not doing it anymore, and it's tricky because Judicial Watch, our goal is to educate people, so I want the word out everywhere. But when it comes to the media, it's been so corrupted. We can't play their game anymore.
And even there are many prominent YouTube personalities, independent personalities who are progressive or liberal, and it's remarkable how either they are completely incompetent or are just outright lying. And I'm confused by this, but I don't give these people the benefit of the doubt anymore, because there's a few people that I've actually DM'd with, and I'm like, here's the public record, here's the link to the story, here's a screen grab showing where you can click it to get the address. We don't need to argue whether it was Libs of TikTok's private home address. Regardless, it was a private contact address for the individual. No, it wasn't. And I'm like, you know what? There's no point in talking to tribalists.
No, I think making your own YouTube videos or internet videos is really the way to go. They can attempt to take it out of context, and they can unethically sometimes, kind of.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. But if you want to check out the full show live, tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And if you want more special access content, head over to timcast.com and become a member. Your membership helps sustain this company, keep our journalists employed, makes this show happen, and you will get access to exclusive members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, and there's a massive library to check out. So again, go to timcast.com or tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., and we'll see you all there.